New York City, the greatest city on earth, the center of the universe, the Big Apple, the city that never sleeps. An open air sewer under the mayorship of Bill De Blasio. This motherfucker has ruined the formerly great city. Listen, okay, you can argue this. It's not something that I'd necessarily take up or endorse whatsoever. That maybe, it became too sanitized. It became too much like Disney World downtown and Times Square under Rudy Giuliani. You know what? After all the caught shit and all the garbage that he brought along, cleaned everything up, and did a sterling job in managing the devastation that was 9/11, who the people that you see in the middle of this screen, according to the one with the tube sock on her head, said that it was just some people doing something over there. That was her tweet. She sent it. But the downfall from the lower crime rates, the booming economy, some days a lot more booming than others, and then it was even maintained under Mike Bloomberg, who, like him or not, even though he's a little bit too much of a micromanager with trying to ban big gulps and putting calorie counts on everything, things that I kind of like, but it's not the responsibility of the government to be doing that kind of shit. But he still maintained that same level of respectability for New York City, something that was immediately lost as soon as Bill De Blasio plunked his spindly ass into that mayor's chair. You've seen the reports that were coming out. Crime is back in New York City. You didn't really want to go outside when nightfall came around. Okay? Bums were popping out of alleys, popping a squat in between two parked cars and dropping a log in the middle of the street. Things were immediately starting to happen. This was weeks after he started in. I wish he'd stop, and thankfully he's almost out. He'll be out in 2022, and nobody's really lining up for an endorsement for him because he has been an amazing embarrassment for, well, one of the greatest cities in the world. I have no desire to ever go there, but you know what? I hear great things, right? And what he's been doing lately, okay, what else did he do? He also dressed up as, I don't know, some other panel van enthusiast, but in this, he just looks like the whitest guy that you could ever come across in your life. I understand, okay, maybe the hat, but at least fucking roll up the brim a little bit. What are you? He's too much of a cracker to take a tour of the saltines factory. I mean, he's the whitest guy at a fucking Klan rally. This is just embarrassing. I understand you're on your way out, but my god, man, have some fucking dignity. But as always, you guys know I'm not too much for appearance or how the message gets delivered. It's more about the substance of the message. And you know what? He's doing something good, even though I won't necessarily hold him to this promise, but he's saying today that schools will reopen in September with no remote option. I fucking doubt this is going to happen because he still has a full year-ish in charge, and I bet you there will be some wiggling coming in here. As much as I would love for schools to continue to be wide open, public schools I have a lot of questions of, because for every great teacher that there is, and I can think of one really great teacher that I had during my development, and I'm sure you guys too, if you went through the public school system, there's probably that one teacher in your head. For me, it was Mr. Corvin, great man, for a multitude of reasons. You guys can probably also think of that great teacher that you had in grade school. That was the only one that immediately comes to mind when I think of a great teacher. They are out there, they do exist, but for the overwhelming majority of them, they are, if not outright, they are sympathetic Marxists at this point, and they don't do a whole lot other than just collect a check. When I was going through the system at the time, it was more or less just somebody who'd be out there, they'd already have all of their plans already figured out, they'd have their curriculum laid out, and they would just hand out fucking worksheets, okay? And when they weren't just grading the worksheets, they were trying to fuck the first grade teacher. True story, that was my third grade teacher. Third grade teacher. But a whole nother story for another day. And I'd imagine, yes, you heard a good story in the comment section of another video from a little while back from one of my good friends on here. And yeah, a tragic story of what happened to her, and sound like she was a great teacher, and the response to everything that gone on there. That's his story to tell at another day. But yeah, of course there are good teachers out there. But then at the same time, you just want the schools to be open, okay? Because the socialization process, these 2 years that have been absolutely fucked by these kids that rely on these schools to, I don't know, escape the horrors at home. Does that happen more often than not? Maybe. But you know what? To at least get out there and congregate with your friends in a non-weird setting. You know what? Having to sit in front of a computer screen all day and just not be engaged, not, I don't know, just fucking play and be a kid, strap a diaper on your face, and march in single file up and down the lines and just follow arrows on the floor. That's just retarded, and the development of the kids that are going to be stunted because of this is going to be felt for a very, very, very long time. What we're doing to kids right now, forcing them to wear masks all the time, it's something I die a little bit inside whenever I see somebody, or rather one of the kids, just waiting for the bus, standing alone by themselves, or they're all spaced out like fucking lawn ornaments waiting, just wearing masks outside. It just makes me die a little bit inside. And hopefully by returning all schools to normal in September, that means normal. That means you got the kid who picks his nose and eats it, or eats the paper towel in the bathroom. Kids who are shooting spitballs at each other. I want a goddamn normal school experience for these kids. I don't want them to go back and then just have to be sitting in their little plastic cubicles. You've seen the pictures out there. They are horrific, but let's see what New York's going to be doing. Enough of that tangent. New York City Mayor Bill De Blasio announced on Monday that all public schools will reopen in the fall. To be fair, there's only, like a month, maybe, of school left, which is weird. My God, this year has flown by. And there will be no option to attend remotely. I look forward to seeing that get walked back very shortly. Bill de Blasio said COVID-19 cases have been declining in the city and vaccinations are working. Imagine that. That means welcoming all our students and staffs back to the school. We're beating back COVID like it is a poor Asian man just not trying to give up 50 cents to a brother who asked for it. And our city is coming back strong. Jesus, you shouldn't be using such violent rhetoric considering rising crime rates, but nobody's being held accountable in New York City. As you can see here, this is something else that Bill de Blasio definitely has jurisdiction over to make sure it doesn't happen. But is he? Nah, of course not. You know, it all couldn't be all sunshines and roses for old Wigger Bill. Violence surged across the Big Apple this week with significant upticks in shootings, robberies, and serious assaults. But don't worry, schools are going to be open, and if you want to come get the jab, we'll give you a donut and some fries or whatever that other... The dude is such an embarrassment. You guys have seen the videos of it, but yeah. I just wanted to frame it properly because I just thought he looked super pathetic in that Brooklyn Nets gear. The crime wave struck both the streets and the subways, with incidents on the transit system more than doubling despite a long-sought increase in police patrols. The total number of arrests during the week that ended Sunday fell 10.2% from 3,290 to 2,953. Holy fucking astronomical numbers. But again, you're dealing with a densely populated city, which is becoming more and more polarized and combative. That's a word. Confrontational against one another. Compared to the same period last year, official comp stats figures showed gun arrests plummeted 24% from 129 to 98, even as shootings skyrocketed 72% from 25 to 43. No. That right there just shows the lethality of guns. Because there's fewer of them out there, because guess what? Nobody's getting arrested for guns, right? So that means that there's no guns out there whatsoever. That just means that the guns that are out there that we should come down and clamp on, they're just killing more people, would be the words of Sammy Strawman, but I don't think anybody in their right mind would be making that case. The number of gunfire victims shot up more from 27 to 52, an increase of 92.6%. Oh, okay, shit, that just set that Strawman on fire. Fuck. Unless it's just one guy getting super avarice and just needs to start mowing down people. It's not like we haven't seen a certain group of people just want to immediately eradicate another group of people. It couldn't be anything like that, though. No, could it? No, of course not. This will be the story of New York for the foreseeable future. Less arrests, more shootings, and more victims, a frustrated Manhattan cop said. Yep. They could hire 10,000 cops, but it won't matter unless the politicians change the laws and keep criminals in jail. Yup, because there was that story from a couple weeks ago when a bunch of felons were just going to get released because overcrowding. You know what? Instead of actually making people serve out their sentence, pay their debt to society. No, just let them out there on a tether. But wasn't that in San Francisco? Same hellhole, different coast. New York PD recorded double-digit increases in 5 of the 7 categories in major crimes last week. I don't mean to chuckle, but it's just so fucking clown world. Robberies were up 44.4% from 205 to 296, and felony assaults rose 35.3% from 557 to 483, according to latest data. Smallest spike, 28.6%, which is by no means a small spike whatsoever, was in murders, which went from 7 to 9. This is across a week. Across a week. Holy fuck. Holy fuck. The worst trends involve thefts and grand larcenies, up 41.8% from 491 to 696. And the number of stolen vehicles virtually doubling from 157 to 234, up 49%. Oh my God. Crimes in the transit system were up a staggering 161.9%. Oh, 1619. Nice. So you know you can believe these stats. From 21 to 55, despite the temporary addition of 250 police patrols by Mayor Bill De Blasio. Thank you, Bill, for your service following months of demands by MTA and union officials. The increase was fueled in part by the series of subway slashings, including of an ex-con who stunningly told the Post that crime underground has gotten out of hand. The only thing they can do is basically have more police officers, said Dimitrios Zias, 44, who served a 1.5-year to 3-year prison sentence for a 2017 hate crime attack on 2 Jewish women he mistook for Muslims. That right there is one of the biggest confusions you could possibly make. Last week, shooting victims included a federal prosecutor, Molly Bracewell, who was wounded Friday from a stray bullet fragment stuck in her eye when she was outside dining at a restaurant in Brooklyn's trendy Prospect Heights neighborhood. So it's not even staying to the poor neighborhood. The only categories that major crimes that declined were rapes and burglaries, which is kind of one and the same if you think about it, which both dipped 15.4%. But rapes are still up 1.9% this year to date, from 517 to 527. The statistics show. It's at a point where you just got to take a look at the mayoral candidates, and boy, is it a murderer's row of who's that. You got Andrew Yang and people. And if you think Andrew Yang is going to be tough on crime and he's going to figure out how to solve these problems, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. I'd feel bad for New York City for all of this kind of stuff, like all of these violent crimes just shooting through the roof. But at the same time, they did vote for all of this stuff, so you reap what you sow at the end of the day. If by some strange reason you end up coming across this video and you live in New York City, literally businesses have been closed for a year and a half at this point. There's no reason to be sticking around New York City. It won't be coming back for at least a decade in order to become what it was pre-pandemic, pre-Bill De Blasio, and it's not just going to change overnight, so you'd be better off to just come back eventually. I don't know, just maybe rent it out to some piss-stinking bum for the time being if you have a apartment that you don't really care too much about, but you know what, you want to leave your options open for the mid to long term, I suppose. That wraps up the coverage for the day. I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.